toast to Alma Mater and to the Sisters of Charity.
pray. God of kindness and love, we praise and thank you today as we gather to celebrate the achievements of the graduates of 1988. We especially thank you for their families and friends, the professors and staff of this university who have guided and supported them in joy and anguish on their journey to this day. Bless this assembly with the spirit of joy and celebration. Bless us all, and our graduates particularly, with a keen awareness of your gifts to us, that we may go forward with reverence for all creation and all persons, compassion for the suffering and the needy, determination to change what is in violation of your gifts. This we ask of you, eternal God, living and true. Amen.
Mr. Chancellor, Mr. Minister, honored guests, and especially those alumni who have returned to celebrate with us this year, members of the graduating class, and friends. My report this year promises to be rather longer than usual, and I hope you will be patient because we have so much to celebrate and so much to remember. A convocation is always a significant milestone in the lives of the graduates, for all those whose lives theirs touch, and for the life of the whole university community. Our convocation this year marks an especially significant milestone. It marks the completion of Sister Callwood's term as the General Superior of the Sisters of Charity. In this capacity, she has served as the chair of the corporation, which is the body that represents the founders of Mount St. Vincent University. Together with other sisters who form the corporation, Sister Call has provided wise counsel, guidance, and steadfast support to the members of the Board of Governors, to my predecessors and to me as president, appointed by the Board of Governors and the corporation. Most importantly, Sister Parr-Johnston and the Sisters of Charity have provided the kind of leadership that has fostered growth and strengthened independence in the university, consistent with their conviction and concern for equality and fairness, for women as individuals, for the well-being of women in our society and in the world, and for the development of their leadership skills. We thank you, Sister Cole, and we wish you Godspeed as you enter new fields of ministry and service. We know that all whose lives you touch will be blessed in special ways. Changes as well. Sister Patricia Mullins, Dean of the Division of Humanities and Sciences, is leaving the university to assume the office of General Treasurer of the Sisters of Charity. All of us who have benefited from her genius for attention to principle and to the things that really matter in the long run will be very much the poorer for her leaving. We are the ones who can appreciate how much she will contribute to her new office and to the responsibility that it entails. But in addition to her outstanding effectiveness as a university administrator, she is acclaimed most highly as a truly outstanding teacher and advisor. The stories told by those who have been rescued, reprimanded when necessary, and inspired to persevere are endless. They are invariably recounted with great fondness by students and faculty and fellow administrators alike. We thank you, Sister Patricia, for your steadfastness and for your care, and we are pleased that the Sister Patricia Mullins Prize in Chemistry is being established to be awarded annually to a full-time returning student in the Bachelor of Science or Bachelor of Science Home Economics program who has demonstrated outstanding performance in General Chemistry 110 and other freshman level courses in Mullins. During the 1987-88 academic year, the work of reviewing and rewriting the charter of this university has been completed under the direction of Sister Louise in consultation with representatives of all of the constituencies in the university. For those of you who might be wondering, I should explain that the charter is the legal document that sets out the purposes of the university and assigns responsibilities for fulfilling those purposes to various bodies such as the Board of Governors, the Senate, and it enables the university to operate as a body corporate. A bill to adopt the new charter has proceeded to the point of receiving first and second reading in the House of Assembly of the Province of Nova Scotia. It was presented as a private member's bill by the Honorable Joel Matheson, QC, Minister of Health and Fitness, and MLA for Halifax, Bedford Basin, who is with us today. We thank him for his many courtesies and for his support, especially his very recent announcement just last night of $60,000 for research in gerontology. Mr. Matheson. Now, the task of preparing a new charter has provided an opportunity for us to review the past and to reconsider the future of this university. The result of that process has been an affirmation of the vision of the founders of the university. That is, to establish an undergraduate university that will ensure access to higher education for women, that will offer a strong liberal education core program, as well as selected professional programs, and a university that will be characterized by good teaching, good research, and an emphasis on the worth of the individual. Our Christian and Catholic heritage is the wellspring from which we draw strength and direction and resolution to achieve these aims. Good teaching is prized highly at the Mount. It is recognized each year in the form of the Alumni Awards for Teaching Excellence. The selection for these awards is made by a committee chaired by the Vice President Academic, in this case Dr. Katie Bindon, with representatives from the Alumni Association, the student body, and the faculty. It is always a difficult task because all of the nominees have so many strengths. This year, Dr. Joseph Delias Matthews and Dr. John Sayre are the recipients. Their portraits will be displayed in the hallway leading to the boardroom in the Rosarian Center just across from the bookstore. I invite all of you to view them there along with those of the award winners of previous years. Good teaching is demonstrated ultimately in the lives of those who are its beneficiaries, the students. Such demonstrations take many forms, too many to recount in this report today. But I would like to note particularly that this year, 3 Mount students received National Science and Engineering Research Council Awards, which will enable them to pursue graduate studies, one of these being the prestigious 1967 Science and Engineering Scholarship. Such a record of success in proportion to our size is tribute indeed to the high quality of teaching and of the programs students receive here. One of the longest standing members of faculty has been at the heart of the Mount's development in the sciences. At the same time, she has contributed in innumerable ways to the university as a whole. I speak of Dr. Lillian Wainwright. Her contributions through her teaching, research, and service are outstanding. On the recommendation of the Senate and with the approval of the Board of Governors, Dr. Lillian Wainwright is appointed Professor Emeritus on the occasion of this, her retirement. We welcome her to her new rank. We thank her for her gifts to us. We wish her well as she continues her program of research and service in her own field of study. We look forward to a time very soon when the first Lillian Wainwright Scholarship can be awarded. Extends knowledge and understanding, informs policy and practice, and is recognized by a rigorous process of review and assessment. A partnership with government and the private sector has created another avenue for supporting research at the mountains. A model office has been provided and equipped for research in office administration, and especially timely development in the year when the Mount is celebrating the 60th anniversary of our degree program in office administration. This project is a fitting indicator of the many achievements of that department under Professor Joan Ryan's leadership, and it comes at the point when she retires officially from the university. Fortunately, she has agreed to continue to help us, but we take this occasion to recognize and to thank Professor Ryan for the outstanding way she has contributed to the university over the last 14 years. Research activity at the Mount has been increasing at a rapid rate for several years, so much so that space for research and research equipment is at a premium. Students have sacrificed some space, their space, in Everest's Hall, for instance, to permit this research to go on. Faculty share already cramped quarters. We are, quite literally, bursting at the seams everywhere, including the library and other critical research support areas. We are anxiously awaiting the opportunity to move into the E. Margaret Fulton Communications Center, where the library space will be greatly expanded. Computer facilities, along with the audiovisual and television broadcast facilities, will be brought together in new and effective ways in that building. This leading-edge complex will provide opportunities for people at the Mount to benefit from the newest means of finding and using scholarly information and sharing it, quite literally, on a worldwide basis. One of the persons who has helped us maintain and extend the use of our facilities over the years is Art Landry. At the end of June, Mr. Landry will retire. On behalf of all of us who have benefited from his experience, skill, and good humor under pressure, I extend the Mount's thanks and our best wishes. I can certainly attest to his qualities personally, since he, along with his staff and Mr. Paul Rhino, made the transition into the Meadows a relatively painless experience for my aunt and myself. And with special thanks to the donors who assisted us, the Meadows has become a residence particularly suited to entertaining guests of the Mount on all sorts of occasions. Thank you, Art. This service in the university takes many different forms. In particular, I will mention just 3 examples of the ways that the Mount fulfills its mission in this sphere. The first is our activity in international development, with special attention to enhancing opportunities for women in terms of health and nutrition, in business and other economic opportunities, and in education. We are presently involved with projects in Malawi, the Dominican Republic, Nigeria, and Antigua. The second example is our outreach to elder learners. The past year has seen the development of a pilot program of non-credit lectures designed to satisfy the lively intellectual curiosity of people who themselves have identified those areas of interest that they wish to explore. The lectures during 1987-88 focused on the history of the people of Nova Scotia. Third-age learning, or whatever label you might want to give it, provides service to the people who want to learn and to go on learning, In keeping, too, with our tradition of providing new ways to serve the needs of women in particular, we are in the process of developing plans for a Center for Women in Science. The evidence is clear that women are not advancing or even moving into opportunities in science and technology today, largely because they have not been prepared properly to do so. Changes in attitudes and expectations, as well as in counseling and career choices, are all part of the thrust to be addressed. The Mount's established reputation in the fields of psychology, education, and women's studies, along with the special work being done in the sciences and in mathematics for women students, will provide solid academic underpinnings for such a center. Ensuring that students, and especially women students, who would not otherwise be able to benefit from attending the university can come to the Mount is always a concern, because the costs of higher education are considerable. The Mount has been building its scholarships and bursary endowment funds through the generosity of alumni and friends of the university. In a relatively short period, the number of such awards has increased. They are becoming a meaningful and very practical form of encouragement. However, as the faculty and others have observed, many good students are so burdened with the need to work part-time that they cannot spend as much time reading or reflecting as they might, nor in participating in campus activities. In order to relieve a little of that pressure, the Mount has established 4 Presidential Scholars Awards, each of which will cover full tuition, a shared double residence room with meal plans, and will be renewable for up to 4 years of study towards the student's first degree. Another kind of accessibility is provided for employees at the Mount. Because a tuition remissions program is provided, and we have a policy of not imposing arbitrary time limits on courses credited towards a degree, some of our employees are able to complete their credentials while working here. This year, both dean secretaries are among the graduands. Jean Peters is receiving her degree in secretarial arts, and Valerie Leonard is receiving the certificate in business administration, a step toward her goal of completing a bachelor's degree eventually. Both have demonstrated that they are outstanding students who exemplify the mission of the Mount in their experience with us. The quality of life on campus is vitally important to everyone who shares this community. The Mount continues to give high priority to the importance of providing for the growth of the whole person, spiritually and physically as well as intellectually. The ecumenical chaplaincy, the residency, the recreational programs, all these are significant aspects of our student services. The activities of the student union and the various opportunities for students to grow and to learn leadership skills are very important. We must not underrate that importance. It's part of the mission of the Mount. It is through such activities that students, faculty, and staff alike develop ways of demonstrating in practical form our ideals of equality, fairness, and responsibility to others. Translating those ideals into reality in the curriculum and in employment practices is difficult. This year, our distinguished chair in women's studies, Dr. Margaret Anderson, has brought a special focus to the way our use of language in what we teach and in daily life affects attitudes and the ways we think about women's ideals, women's work, women's rights, and women's responsibilities. And we thank her for her contributions. This year, the Mount has begun a difficult task of implementing a pay equity program for staff. I found in my own experience that changing past practices and taking for granted ideas usually seems attractive, as long as I'm not personally involved in those changes. Many at the Mount are working through a difficult period of adjustment as we introduce such change here. We must continue our efforts to find ways to work together with care and sensitivity and openness as we proceed toward the goal of making our ideals work. The Mount's leadership role in such areas, such as those I just mentioned, representing changes that touch on issues of basic social equity, can be a lonely and difficult one at times, but as our history amply demonstrates, a productive one as well. The university continues to enjoy the support of students, their parents, alumni, the governments of Nova Scotia and Canada. We are encouraged by the endorsements we receive from students and employers who express their appreciation of our programs and the support offered here. We've been heartened by the generosity of parents and alumni, illustrated most recently by their response to our SOS call on behalf of the library. The Help Us Stop Our Stacks fundraising campaign has brought additional monies for book acquisitions. It has also brought messages of appreciation and expressions of the kind of vital interest so important to us as a university. We are especially pleased that the government of Nova Scotia has continued to implement a program of equalization funding designed to ensure that students at the Mount will, by their completion of that program, receive an equal proportion of provincial support for their education here as do students in other Nova Scotia universities. In conclusion, I wish to pay special tribute to all of the people here at the Mount who so faithfully fulfill their many and various responsibilities. And I can tell you that the grounds crew were out before 7 o'clock this morning getting ready for the daily celebrations. But there are many others, members of staff who provide services, food services, to students, to faculty, to all of us. To the members of the administration who work with me, especially the 2 vice presidents who are just completing their first year of office, to Dean Clark and all who prepared for this convocation, to the alumni, and to Dale Godson, chair of the board, and to all of the governors. On behalf of the students, members of faculty, and myself, I offer appreciation and grateful thanks.
Most Reverend Chancellor, Madam President, distinguished guests, parents, and friends, we are indeed honored to have you here today. My fellow graduates, congratulations and thank you. Thank you for allowing me, one of the many international students here at the Mount, the opportunity to publicly recognize this wonderful and spirited university, Mount St. Vincent University. As I look out and see the jubilant expressions of this group, I can feel it. The living spirit of MSVU is there. But today, there is also a feeling of excitement underlined by some sadness and uncertainty. It seems like only yesterday that we were the Mount St. Vincent Frosh, filled with trepidation at the unknown. Now, take a look around. We sit as a group of individuals who have journeyed to what many consider to be the finish, our university convocation. Yet, as I look out upon this group, I realize that our life is like a novel, and the end of this chapter only leads to the beginning of another. Once again, we are Frosh in a world of new and exciting experiences yet to be written. There are difficult challenges and choices to be accepted or rejected. Failures and successes are yet to be recorded. Sounds intimidating, doesn't it? Once again, that feeling of trepidation returns because I realize that things will never be the same again. I wonder, can I begin all over again without the security and friendships that I have grown to rely upon during my years at the Mount? My response is immediate, yes. Each of us came to MSVU to prepare ourselves by learning to fulfill a certain goal, and today we have done just that. We are the 1988 graduates of Mount St. Vincent University, a university which is a leader in Canadian post-secondary education, a leader because we have the abilities and qualifications needed to confront new situations and to realize that we can only do our best. The best comes with an abundance of patience, persistence, and dedication. Patience when the understanding won't come. Persistence when knowledge is beyond our reach. Dedication to the knowledge that we acquire. All the qualities needed to meet that certain English professor's deadline or to complete a seemingly impossible computer assignment. My fellow graduates, it is these same black-robed professors seated before us today who assign those impossible tasks, who have given us one of the most precious gifts of all, knowledge. When used to the best of our ability, it is this knowledge that will allow us to reach our fullest potential in the remaining chapters of our lives. If we were to entitle this novel of ours, Doing Our Best seems quite appropriate to me. It would not be complete, however, without a chapter dedicated to the parents and family who have encouraged us and supported us during our years of study at the Mount. You are friends ready to share our successes, and rescuers ready to catch us after our falls and encourage us to try again. Our novel would indeed be incomplete without a chapter dedicated to the memories we have accumulated at the Mount. 3 years ago, I left the beautiful islands of Bermuda for the somewhat colder climate of Halifax. The feelings of loneliness and abandonment that I experienced during my first week in residence were quickly dispelled as I realized many others understood and shared those same feelings. Members of the Mount community are not expected to face situations alone. There is an intimacy and a sense of community somewhat unique to our campus. The friendships formed during Wednesday nights at Vinny's Pub, the cups of coffee and group discussions shared over a small table in the cafeteria's smoky atmosphere, the shared frustration expressed during afternoon labs, and the pranks, giggles, and tears shed in the small residence room. These special intimacies have given each of us the confidence we need to pick ourselves up after our falls in order to reach our goals, in order to be successful. My fellow graduates, our foundation chapters are now complete. For most of us, the remaining chapters will be written by us and us alone. Finish those chapters with the sustenance that they deserve. Thank you again.
Your Grace, it is my privilege to present to you the candidates for the collegiate honors of graduation. I attest that they have successfully completed the required courses of study, and I ask that they be admitted to the baccalaureate degree. Mount St. Vincent University confers the degree of Bachelor of Arts on Elizabeth Ann Amadeo.
On behalf of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Arts with all the rights and privileges and responsibilities of that degree.
Janet L. Arsenault.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Arts.
Andrea Aubrey.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Arts.
Melanie Barrett with distinction. Rod Bento with distinction. Kelly Lynn Brown. Kim Burge. Glenda Burrows. Krista Campbell. Sharon R.J. Campbell. Tracy Castleman. Pauline Chagnon with distinction. Melinda Chisholm. Carol Marie Clark. Madeline J. Conrad with distinction. Sandra Cook with distinction. Edward Cooper. Rafa Dawood. Karen DeMille. Lisa Catherine DeNike. Anne D'Entremont. Carol DeGoo. Nancy A. Doiron. James G. Donovan. Catherine Ann Earls. Heather L. Elliott. Terry Farrell with distinction. Penelope K. Ferris. Kim Ferris. Tracy L. Fifield. Amelia Alexander Fraser. Karen Elaine Godet. Patricia Gerin. Lorna M. Gillis. Rose M. Gillis with distinction. Teresa Gordon. Michelle Goody. Christina Hache with distinction. James Robert Hazelton. Jane Henderson. R. Marjorie Holland, and recipient of the French Embassy Prize. Cynthia Ann Hollis. Cindy Ilsley. Susan Ivy. Terry Edward Kelsey. Janice Kleiner with distinction and recipient of the Swiss Ambassador's Prize in French and first to hold the Spanish Embassy's Prize. Michelle Marie Lang. Karen Lawson with distinction and recipient of the Danny Weston Memorial Prize in French. Joanne Marie LeBlanc. Linda M. Levy with distinction. Jennifer Lyons with distinction. Judy A. McDonald. Scott McKeegan. Jody Lynn Marchand. Sherry Ann McDowell. Kate McKenna with distinction and with highest aggregate. Shelley Lynn Kane McKinney. Sari McLean. Terry Marr. Regina Ella Miles. Patricia Mitchell Monroe with distinction. Sandra Morrison. Lorna Marie Murphy. Lisa Murray. Shirley Levy Nicholson with distinction. Joan Oderkirk. Georgina Omaleolo. Carol P. O'Neill with distinction. Deborah M. O'Quinn with distinction. Shelley M. A. Orman. Colleen Lynn Payne. Monique Pelshaw with distinction. Virginia Phillips with distinction. Paul D. Poirier. Jane Priest. Terry Quinn. Fern C. Raymond. Barbara K. Riley with distinction. Samuel R. Sampson. Christina Schrafel. Catherine Sears. Starlyn Shears. Jean Agnes Sloan. Darlene Snyder. Andrew Malcolm Stanley. Monica Stephen. Kwong Sang. Isabel Uloa. Patricia Ann Vickers. Patricia Wall with distinction. Linda Diane Williams with distinction. Annette L. Zink. Diane Zink. The degree of Bachelor of Arts Honors with First Class Honors on Andrea Crozier.
On behalf of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Arts Honors with all the rights and privileges and responsibilities of that degree.
Honors Certificate in Arts on Sharon L. Heyman.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Arts with Honors Certificate in Arts.
The degree of Bachelor of Science on Yvette Bellevaux.
On behalf of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science with all the rights and privileges and responsibilities of that degree.
John Kevin Berenger.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Carl Pierre Boucher.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Mary Therese Butts.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Heather Marie Campbell.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Rose Campbell.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Cynthia Coffin.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Richard Lewis Collins.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Carol Ann Doiron.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Janice Marie Gallant.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Sean Kenneth Gannon.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Solomon Haddis.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Gail Hartland.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Krista L. Hatfield.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Darlene Himmelman.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Rosamond Marie Judry.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Carol Joy Long.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Chong Long,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Jeffrey J. McClellan,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Francine M. Manning,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Dorothy Marshall with distinction,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Ray McCurdy,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Juanita Marie Mumberket with distinction,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science.
Sandra Ann Ray with distinction and with highest aggregate, Nancy Richards with distinction and recipient of the Psychology Department's Graduating Students Award, Carmen Symington with distinction, the degree of Bachelor of Science Honors on Dana M. Bryant with first class honors,
On behalf of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science Honors with all the rights and privileges and responsibilities of that degree. I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science Honors.
Lisa Pippi,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science Honors.
Verna Powell,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science Honors.
Patricia Wambold with first class honors,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science with first class honors.
the degree of Bachelor of Science honors given jointly by Mount St. Vincent University and Dalhousie University on John Louis Chasson,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science Honors.
on Natalie M. LeBlanc,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science Honors.
on Charlene Winchcombe with first class honors,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science Honors.
honors certificate in science given jointly by Mount St. Vincent University and Dalhousie University on Kimberly A. Gates,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Science with honors certificate.
the degree of Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Education in the integrated program on Andrea Louise Brumhead with distinction in the Bachelor of Education and with highest aggregate.
On behalf of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Education with all the rights and privileges and responsibilities of that degree.
On M. Kimberly Squires Keynes,
I admit you to the degrees of Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Education.
on Leslie Jean Craig with distinction in the Bachelor of Education,
I admit you to the degrees of Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Education.
on Patricia Lynn Croft with distinction in the Bachelor of Education,
I admit you to the degrees of Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Education.
on Shelley Ann Smith,
I admit you to the degrees of Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Education.
Paula Claire Yarn with distinction in both degrees,
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Education.
the degree of Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Education in the integrated program on Lisa Marie Davis with distinction in both degrees,
I On behalf of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, I admit you to the degrees of Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Education with all the rights and privileges and responsibilities of those degrees.
The degree of Bachelor of Home Economics and Bachelor of Education in the Integrated Program on Cheryl Ann Avery.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Home Economics and Bachelor of Education.
Wendy Kinney, Senior Class President and recipient of the Alumni Student Leadership Award. The degree of Bachelor of Education in association with Nova Scotia Teachers College on Audrey Binder.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Tina Broderick.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Patricia Brown.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Kelly Ann E. Corbett.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Vandalia Regina Creaser with distinction.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Kimberly Darling.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Monique DeWolf.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
John W. Dexter.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Amy Doucette.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Ann Ellsworth.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Catherine Gordon.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Susan L. Grant.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Marilyn Hamlin.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Karen Hasey.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Mary T. Hawes.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Sonia M. Heyman.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Faye M. Henley.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Beverly D. Hiltz.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Elaine Carroll LeBlanc.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Maria Lee.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Jane F. McDonald.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Barbara McCarran.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Mabel V. McCarthy.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Diane Morse.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Shirley A. Rushton.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Karen A. Ryan.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Monique Sellers with distinction.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Holly L. Schaffner.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Beverly Ann Smith.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Pamela Stensrud.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Angela Terrio.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Dora Vaughn.
I admit you to the degree of Bachelor of Education.
Michael A. Wilson. The degree of Bachelor of Education on Weldon H. Boudreau. Carolyn Marie Boutelier. Shiella Campbell with distinction. Catherine M. Chapman. Dale T. Coates with distinction. Melinda E. Davis. Inga Dorsey with distinction. Natalie Faye Enman. Karen Hastings with distinction. Robert A. McDonald. Sheila McGuire with distinction. Elizabeth Massé-Chaud. L. Joy Matthews. Lisa Michelle McCara. Nancy McEwen. Deborah McKinnon. Nancy Elaine Mully. Joanne Pace with distinction and with highest aggregate. Ruth A. Parkin. Trudy Pettigrew. Catherine Proctor. Francine Quinn. Jill Roberts. Julia Seymour. Sandra J. Toohey. Lise Wadden. Joanne Lynn Williams. Your Grace, it is my privilege to present to you the candidates for the collegiate honors of graduation. I attest that they have successfully completed the required courses of study, and I ask that they be admitted to the master's degree. Mount St. Vincent University confers the degree of Master of Education on Nancy Ann Anthony.
On behalf of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, I admit you to the degree of Master of Education with all the rights and privileges and responsibilities of that degree.
Susan April Ryan.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Catherine Armstrong.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Joanne Marie Batcock.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Donna Grace Clark.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Nancy L. Daw.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Mary Ellen Fenwick.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Dale Hunt.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Roberta Jones.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Agnes McCormick.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Karen Metcalf.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Scott Moore.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Catherine Noseworthy.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Catherine J. Rogers.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Noreen Shaver.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Margot Shutt.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Kathy Smith.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Sandra Torden.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Cindy Tully.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
Susan E. Rothal Tomey.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Education.
The degree of Master of Arts in Education on John Allen Camo.
On behalf of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, I admit you to the degree of Master of Arts in Education with all the rights and privileges and responsibilities of that degree.
David Hustis.
I admit you to the degree of Master of Arts in Education.
The degree of Master of Arts in Home Economics Education on Kim D. Travers.
On behalf of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, I admit you to the degree of Master of Arts in Home Economics with all the rights and privileges and responsibilities of that degree.
In addition, we confer the appropriate degrees on all those not present today whose names are listed in the program.
I confer degrees in absentia on those persons so designated by the Dean.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to ask you all to turn to page 29 in your programs, where you'll find the words "To Gaudiamus." This is a traditional graduate song, which the graduates are getting ready to sing for you. But they'd like me to ask you to join with us as we sing it. So can we all please rise and join in Gaudiamus? Gaudiamus igitur, juvenestum sumus. Gaudiamus igitur, juvenestum sumus. Post jucundam juventutem, post molestem
a baby to moose, knows a baby to moose. Vivat Academia, vivat professores, vivat Academia, vivat professores, vivat membrum quod libet, vivat membre quae libet, semper sint in flore, semper sint in flore.
Now we come to the awarding of some special prizes. The President's Prizes are special awards donated by the University President and awarded to members of the graduating class who have given evidence of best fulfilling the university ideals of self-sacrifice and all-round cooperation, and who give promise of continued loyalty to the alma mater. This morning, we give the award to someone who has combined the roles of employee, parent, colleague, member of the Mount community, and student, who has performed academically with distinction, and has served fellow students as nurse and health educator, who has developed various preventative health programs and offered caring support in response to the needs of the whole Mount community. This morning, the President's Prize goes to Sandra Cook, BA with distinction. The Kappa Gamma Pi. Membership in Kappa Gamma Pi, Honor Society of Catholic Universities for Women, is awarded to graduates who, in addition to high scholastic standing and a good record in extracurricular activities, give promise of academic leadership in the future. This morning, we grant the award to Charlene Winchcombe, BSc Honors, with first-class honors given jointly by Mount St. Vincent University and Dalhousie. The Governor General's Medals. A silver medal donated by Her Excellency the Governor General of Canada is given to an undergraduate for the highest aggregate in the senior year. For 1988, the silver medal is awarded to Kate McKenna, BA in Women's Studies, with distinction and with highest aggregate. A gold medal is donated by Her Excellency the Governor General of Canada for the highest academic standing among master's degrees graduates. For 1988, the gold medal is awarded to Kim Travers, Master of Arts in Home Economics Education.
Today, Mount St. Vincent University has chosen to honor one of Canada's most productive, most creative, most forceful, most durable, most distinguished, and most decorated scientists. And this distinguished scientist is a woman. Most Reverend Chancellor, I am indeed honored to present Brenda Langford Milner. Order of Canada, BA, MA, PhD, SCD, LLD, BSc, Doctor of Social Science, Doctor of Science, Fellow of the Royal Society of Canada, Fellow of the Royal Society of London, England, Honorary Life Member of the New York Academy of Science. Believe me, her list of honors, awards, and publications is longer than today's list of graduates. A Canadian citizen by choice, Dr. Milner was born in Manchester, England, and earned her first degrees in experimental psychology in Cambridge University, England. During World War II, she worked in Cambridge and then with the British Ministry of Supply, where she was involved in the development of controls and display for radar devices. After the war, she emigrated to Canada, and by 1950, began the work in brain research that has put her name in all current introductory psychology and physiology textbooks. This work was initiated as a team effort involving the dynamic, internationally recognized group of neurosurgeons and neurologists gathered around the famous Canadian physician Wilder Penfield at Montreal Neurological Institute. However, the young Brenda Milner, then a doctoral student of Nova Scotian DO-HEB, was not the token woman in this dynamic group. Tokenism simply was not fashionable in the male-dominated domain of medicine in the 1950s. But being a diminutive woman did not impede the indomitable Brenda. The words of Alfred Lord Tennyson, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield, were as characteristic of this woman in the 50s as they still are today. Neurologists and neurosurgeons in the 1950s and 60s measured physical things like reflexes and alpha and beta waves on the electroencephalogram. Brenda Milner showed these physicians that mental activities that define humanness, activities like memory, emotion, and thinking also could be measured. And so began her life's work. Since 1950, she has dedicated her life to basic research into brain-behavior relations. And in that process, she has fostered the development of a new scientific discipline, human neuropsychology. Dr. Milner is perhaps best known for her breakthrough research of the 1950s, work dealing with memory loss following damage to portions of the brain called the hippocampus and the amygdala. But throughout her long and distinguished career, she and her students have been at the forefront of many innovations in the developing discipline of neuropsychology. Her contributions are numerous and diverse. In recognition of her achievements in productivity, in 1983, she was awarded the Canada Council's prestigious Isaac Walter Pillow Prize for Distinguished Lifetime Achievement. I attended my first professional convention in September 1967. The highlight of that convention was a symposium chaired by Dr. Milner on the differences in the organization and functions of the left and right cerebral hemispheres of the brain. And this June, 21 years later, I'll attend yet another one of Dr. Milner's many symposia on breakthrough issues in neuropsychology. This symposium will deal with memory retraining following brain injury. Many scientists at this stage in their career might be tempted to rest on their laurels, but a woman's work is never done. This dynamic 71-year-old continues to create and innovate. I should add that Dr. Milner remains director of the Neuropsychology Laboratory at Montreal Neurologic Institute and Hospital, a career investigator for the Medical Research Council of Canada, a professor of the Department of Neurology and Neurosurgery at McGill University. No wonder she's too impatient to wait for elevators and prefers to climb the stairs herself. Thus, it seems most fitting that just as Mount St. Vincent University is beginning a major fund drive to establish a chair dedicated to women in science, and in the year that we have created the Lillian Wainwright Women in Science Entrance Scholarship, that we should recognize Canada's perhaps most distinguished female scientist. And so, in recognition of her lifetime of work as a scientist, teacher, administrator, scholar, and the mother of the discipline of neuropsychology, I ask you, Most Reverend Chancellor, in the name of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, to confer on Brenda Langford Milner the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters honoris causa.
On behalf of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, I confer on you, Brenda Milner, the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters honoris causa.
Most Reverend Chancellor, I have the honor to present Mary Edwards, BA, LLB, LLM, civil litigation lawyer and partner in Torrey, Delorier, and Bennington. It is most appropriate that Mary Edwards' work be recognized by Mount St. Vincent, for her career is marked by a commitment to equality and justice for women. This commitment is evidenced in her teaching, her legal practice, her professional activity, her scholarly research, and her volunteer work. From 1974 to 1980, Mary Edwards was an associate professor with the Faculty of Law at the University of Toronto, where she continues to teach constitutional law to large classes. She is well known for her lively lectures and her clear and informed analytical style. On April 17, 1985, Section 15, the Equality section of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, came into effect. In the same month, Mary Edwards became a founding member of the Women's Legal Education and Action Fund. One of the Leaf's primary goals is to achieve equality for women by means of litigation using the guarantees of the Charter. As part of meeting that primary goal, Leaf selects test cases of importance to women to sponsor in court challenges. Mary Edwards has represented Leaf in a number of these important cases. This past October, she added to both feminist theory and practice. In arguing the Andrews case, she posited a feminist legal interpretation of the equality section of the Charter of Rights. Further, she has been instrumental in clarifying women's concerns about the implications of the Meech Lake Accord for Equality Issues. Mary Edwards also supports LEAF and other women's organizations through her scholarly publications. Feminist clarifications of the Charter are central to women's struggles in Canada, and research which assists such political action is essential. I will highlight a few important titles in a list far too numerous to cite in full. Equality rights under the Charter of Rights, sex and equality rights in our own co-edited text, making use of the Charter of Rights, and the use of litigation under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms as a strategy for achieving change. Such a list gives one an idea not only of Mary Everett's productivity, but also of the vision which drives it. She was also a member of the Fraser Commission on Pornography and Prostitution. The Fraser Report is unique in reflecting feminist concerns, as well as the perspective of other moral positions on issues related to pornography and prostitution. The importance of feminist analysis in Canadian social policy cannot be underestimated. Mary Everett brought such a perspective to the Fraser Commission. She's currently the chair of the task force on the implementation of midwifery in Ontario, and is also on the board of Palmetto Foundation, a charitable organization committed to equality for women in developing countries. She serves on the advisory board of the Constitutional Litigation Program for the Faculty of Law at the University of Toronto. She is past executive member of Canada's National Action Committee on the Status of Women, and has served as vice president and board member on the executive of the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. In 1982, the YWCA of Metro Toronto recognized her efforts by presenting her with their Woman of Distinction Award. At Mount St. Vincent, we attempt to instill in our students the sense that to be an educated person is to be educated with a sense of justice and moral integrity. In Mary Everett, we have a fine exemplar of such an educated person. In recognition of Mary Everett's past and continuing work for justice and equality for women, I ask you, Most Reverend Chancellor, in the name of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, to confer on Mary Everett the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
In the name of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, I confer on you, Mary Everett, the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
I would like to thank you all in this community for the signal honor of this degree. I have spent a large part of my adult life working for women's rights, and to be honored by a university that has such a lustrous record in the education and development of women and the enhancement of their lives is a recognition that I shall prize to the end of my days. I am particularly proud that my husband and my daughter are here to share this day with me. They and our two sons, who are not here today because they are too young and too boyish to endure a graduation ceremony, have made an enormous contribution of their own to the work which you acknowledge today. For it is done in time that otherwise might be theirs, and with energy that I might otherwise bring to my life with them. Although some of these contributions of their time and energy are ones over which they have not been consulted, they have maintained their sympathy for the equality of women and offered warm sustenance in difficult times. My husband, I think, is sometimes surprised at the feminism of his own outlook, and I know that he is widely admired for his court judgments in family and welfare law cases, where his awareness of women's concerns is clearly seen. And my daughter, at 9, shows a most welcome interest in furthering women's work. Her Mother's Day card to me this year bore, besides its hand-drawn flowers, the legend from Bread and Roses, "The rising of the women means the rising of the race," chosen by her from a wonderful Canadian children's book about women textile workers' struggles in Valleyfield, Quebec in 1946, written by women, published by the Women's Press, and purchased in a women's bookstore supported by the women's community of Canada. Two good friends who share women's work with me are also here, Dr. Susan Clark of your faculty and Ms. Nancy Jackman of your board. They are part of the community of women who refresh one another when spirits flag, and it seems impossible to summon up one more word to hurl into the bottomless pit of law reform. The last occasion upon which I made a ceremonial academic speech, I was dressed in civvies, and it was at my high school graduation 24 years ago, at which I gave the valedictory. But after the manner of high school valedictories, this was not a retrospective speech, but forward-looking. As I recall, I said with great solemnity that the future was ours if only we kept our eyes on the horizon and courage in our hearts. Well, years later, those cliches don't ring with the certainty that they held for me at 17. And I feel a little more retrospective in 1988 than I did in 1964. This may be partly due to advancing age, partly, I am sure, to some shadowy perception that we are only 12 years away from the turn of the century and from the end of the millennium. Both nodes of time in human history, not only history notorious, not only for being transformational, but also for inducing various kinds of madness in humankind. My reflections on my last 20 years and the span of the century and of the millennium dwell on these two institutions of family and community that I saluted at the beginning of my remarks. They particularly concern themselves with women and how we have been faring. It seems remarkable to me that for almost all of this millennium we are about to depart, and probably one before it too, women have had no rights in our political and legal systems. Indeed, in a landmark case as recently as 1929, the Canadian Supreme Court decided that women were not persons under the Canadian Constitution. The court's decision relied heavily on the absence from the historical record of any evidence that women had exercised the political rights of persons. Surely it reasoned, if they had had such rights, they would have known and exercised them. Many of the rights of persons which women now enjoy were in fact won by them only in this century and the very end of the last. These include the right to vote, to hold public office, to pursue higher education and enter the professions, and the rights of married women to the legal custody of their own children, to possess the wages of their own work, and to have a share in matrimonial property. And for all this progress, women are still not equal to men in real terms. They earn less. Most of them who work are restricted to a few still largely female occupations. And women with children still find it difficult both to raise them and to meet the demands of a workplace and career structure which assume that the worker is a male breadwinner with a wife at home to look after his children. Across the world, women fare even less well than they do here. Consider this observation from a UN report. Women constitute half the world's population, perform nearly 2/3 of its work hours, receive 1/10 of the world's income, and own less than 1/100th of the world's property. Small though our achievements may have been, however, when seen in the millennial perspective, they would not have occurred at all had it not been for the elements of community and family. For women's advance has depended upon ideas, upon knowledge, upon an awareness of our own history. And for these, all during a long exile from formal paths of power and means of learning, women have depended on their families and on communities of women. The nurturing and dissemination of these ideas was often informal, sometimes more formal, but invariably depended on these institutions. The recapture, the piecing together of women's history is only now beginning to show us that and how this is true. I am only an amateur historian and not up to the task of full exposition of this theme, but let me give you a few threads to weave together. Privileged families over the centuries have always educated their daughters, some to an impressive degree, even in the days when women could aspire to no public application of that knowledge. From baronial England to middle-class North America, this has been the case. Among the North American women pioneers in the professions were many who learned their calling by apprenticing to their sympathetic male relatives when formal schooling was unavailable to them. These means of learning were informal ones. For the formal ways in which communities of women preserved and disseminated knowledge about women and about the world, we look to the great convents and the teaching orders, like the Sisters of Charity, who have played such a key role in the development of education in North America and who founded this school. At the time of its founding, the only independent women's college in the Commonwealth. Informal learning was transmitted from woman to woman in many ways too, and these informal systems could keep an ethos and a set of skills alive for decades in very inhospitable times. Take the example of midwifery. Midwives were common in North America in the mid-19th century, but the formalization of medical education and its installation in the universities at that time effectively barred women from obtaining the credentials that they needed to practice legally. Yet women continued to help neighbors in childbirth, and community midwives were active in some areas, like Newfoundland, well into the second half of this century. In the 1960s and 70s came renewed interest in low-tech, family-centered birth, and actively practicing midwives surfaced again in several provinces. These women learned from the old midwives and from each other, as women have always learned, and they are helping to transform obstetrics by letting people know that there are alternatives to the high-tech birth culture. Just as the family and community kept alive the spark of education for women, we see the family taking an early significant role in the reform of laws relating to women. In the area of property law, for example, the well-to-do in the 19th century and earlier used the great ruses of the equity courts to preserve their daughters' marriage portions against wastrel husbands, creating the concept of the married woman's separate estate that formed the cornerstone of married women's property law reform in the late 19th century. This picture of family and community is, of course, a somewhat idealized one. Their exclusion from all the other spheres of endeavor left women with nothing but family in the women's community for long centuries, and these could stifle as well as nurture creativity and drive. Consider the now famous outcry of Florence Nightingale against the enforced idleness of Victorian women. In Cassandra, she writes, "Women often strive to live by intellect. The clear, brilliant, sharp radiance of intellect's moonlight rising upon such an expanse of snow is dreary, it is true, but some love its solemn desolation, its silence, its solitude, if they are but allowed to live in it, if they are not perpetually balked and disappointed. But a woman cannot live in the light of intellect. Society forbids it. These conventional frivolities, which are called her duties, forbid it. Her domestic duties, high-sounding words, which for the most part are but bad habits, which she has not had the courage to enfranchise herself from, the strength to break through, forbid it. What are these duties or bad habits? Answering a multitude of letters which lead to nothing from her so-called friends, keeping herself up to the level of the world that she may furnish her quota of amusement at the breakfast table, driving out her company in the carriage. And all these things are exacted from her by her family, which, if she is good and affectionate, will have more influence with her than the world. The family, she lamented, it is too narrow a field for the development of an immortal spirit, be that spirit male or female. The chances are 1,000 to 1 that in that small sphere, the task for which that immortal spirit is destined by the qualities and the gift with which its creator has placed within it will not be found. In fact, Nightingale's great contribution to nursing came only after she broke the bonds of convention and family. And other notable Victorian and pre-Victorian thinkers eschewed conventional family relationships. Mary Wollstonecraft, author of The Vindication of the Rights of Women, was severely critical of the institution of marriage and unconventional in her own liaisons. Harriet Taylor Mill, who wrote essays on the enfranchisement of women and marriage and divorce, the latter with John Stuart Mill, left a conventional marriage for her intellectual companionship with John Stuart Mill. And Charlotte Perkins Gilman, celebrated author of Women in Economics, found conventional marriage a source only of profound depression and mere madness. And these three thinkers, along with Mill himself, were instrumental in daring to take the new liberal doctrines of the rights of man, so inspiring to post-revolutionary American and continental thinkers, and apply them to the rights of women. And it was this intellectual development which helped release the energies of women to strive for their full personhood. For women today, the tension between the boundaries and the sustenance of family life continues. In many respects, this is because both the family and the workplace still reflect an organization predicated on the male as breadwinner with a lifetime wife making his home, looking after his children, and dependent on him for support. One need only look at contemporary career patterns, which assume you must have become established by your early 30s, women's childbearing years, work days that are longer than children's school days, and work schedules which require all educational and career advancement activities to take place in the evening and on weekends, to realize that this is the case. And studies of professional women show that the single greatest determinant of whether a woman will earn less than a male with the same education and experience is family status. So women today who want both families and fulfillment in work face a difficult choice. They can have their children on the same terms as men who work, that is, by having other women raise them. Or they can try to transform the institutions of work and family to accommodate both of their goals. And here let me return to the other note I sounded at the beginning. The community of women in the Academy is playing a significant role in trying to accomplish the transformation of women's lives, just as other communities of women have enlightened, sustained, and educated women through centuries past. For the past several decades, women in the Academy have taken enormous risks to open up for us our history, finding and knitting together pieces from old journals, association and institutional records, folklore, and many other diverse sources to tell us where we have been and what our institutions and our family lives have meant for us and can mean for us. And as we come to see more clearly who we are and where we have been, women in the Academy have been bringing these perspectives to many disciplines, to criticism of art and literature, political science, religious studies, management, psychology, linguistics, sociology, law, and a range of others. The new and exciting discipline of women's studies, in which the Mount shows such leadership, is opening up areas of thought and scholarship few even dreamed of when I was starting my teaching career in the early 70s. And we see already in legislative lobbying, in litigation under the Charter of Rights, in effecting institutional change in many contexts, how the insights of the woman's mind and eye are proving effective ways of dispelling stereotypes and error. Women scholars writing about women's reality are even now being cited in and by the Supreme Court of Canada in landmark constitutional cases on women's rights. In male-dominated institutions and disciplines, doing this pioneering research can put women's careers in jeopardy, as women's studies, women's journals, and the women-centered perspective are regarded as marginal, unscholarly, or too subjective. How fortunate are we all to have a university like Mount St. Vincent, concerned primarily with the education of women, with its Women's Studies Baccalaureate, collection on the history of women, an institute for the study of women, and individual faculty and administrators who show such leadership in the search for women's equality. The Mount is for women close to being a national treasure. And how fortunate you graduates are to have an association with this place of women's learning. Yet not surprisingly, there is abroad in our society a feeling of ill will against women's institutions. Even some individual women say, I can make it on my own, I don't need the women's community. I will never be treated as an equal unless I move fully into the man's world. Some men say, you're equal now, you don't need all this special treatment, all these sheltered workshops that are female-dominated, and attacks on storehouses of women's culture, on women's few power bases in the professions and in academic life, are now being plainly made, whether in the guise of embarrassment about a women's pub night or a Charter of Rights attack on the existence of the venerable Federation of Women Teachers Associations, which helped secure the Royal Commission on the Status of Women, the Charter of Rights, and the first National Leaders' Debate on women's issues. So as alumni, I urge you to foster and defend the Mount and institutions like her. The critical work of the Women's Academy is just beginning, and it needs, if I may borrow a term from your founders, important mother houses like this one to infuse it with hope and energy. Thank you.
Dr. Everett, it is my honor and pleasure to thank you on behalf of the 1988 graduates. Your remarks have particular significance for us as graduates of this women's university. Hopefully, like you, we will continue to be aware of women's rights and concerns. And hopefully, we will continue to promote the status of women in whatever field of endeavor we have chosen. Thank you.
An articulate American once said, speaking of the game, it ain't over till it's over. Well, it's like that with the convocation, too. And to make sure it's really over, I declare this convocation closed.